For years now, it feels like every AAA game has been competing to have the biggest map possible. Whenever a new game is announced, one of the first questions people ask is, how big is the map? And developers often use that as a selling point. But I've started wondering if we're asking the wrong questions. Maybe the real question isn't how big is the map. Maybe it's how much fun is there inside it. Because personally, I don't think games need huge open world maps to be great. Don't get me wrong, the first time you open a massive map, it can be exciting. You zoom out and realise how enormous it is, and how you've got hundreds of hours of exploration ahead of you. But after that initial excitement wears off, size alone doesn't keep me interested. What matters is what I'm actually doing while exploring. If I'm holding forward on the analog stick, or driving for 5 minutes between objectives, then eventually the map starts to feel like wasted space than meaningful content. This is where I think some games really shine. Take Yakuza 0 for example. Kamurocho isn't a huge map by modern standards. You can cross it in minutes, but almost every street has something happening. You might find a restaurant, a sub-story, a shop, an arcade, karaoke, a random encounter, or some completely ridiculous side activity. You're constantly interacting with the world. It feels packed with life. I'd happily explore Kamurocho for hours because the game rewards curiosity. Now compare that with games where the map is much larger. Sometimes you'll spend several minutes simply travelling from one objective to another, as you can see what I'm doing in Mafia 3. And I haven't even travelled that far on the map, but it's just as an example. You're not discovering anything. You're not making interesting decisions. You're just getting from point A to point B. For me, that's where the experience starts to lose momentum. I've played games where I feel like I spent almost as much time travelling as actually playing missions, and after a while, that becomes repetitive. Another thing I've noticed is that bigger maps often need more activities to fill them. So developers add dozens or even hundreds of collectibles. Maybe there are towers to climb, maybe there are camps to clear, maybe there are identical side objectives repeated across the map. And while some players enjoy ticking everything off a checklist, I often find myself asking, would the game actually be worse if half of this wasn't here? I'd rather have 10 memorable side quests than 100 forgettable collectibles. Ironically, I often feel more immersed in smaller game worlds, because I learn the layout, I remember where places are, I recognise landmarks. After enough time, the city starts to feel familiar. Kamurocho is a perfect example. Every time I return, I know exactly where certain streets lead. It feels less like loading into a game level, and more like returning somewhere I've visited before. Now, I don't think every game should have a tiny map. Some games absolutely benefit from scale. For example, Grand Theft Auto, where you have lots of things to do, and that's fine. If the goal is exploration, survival, or creating a sense of adventure, then a huge world can make perfect sense. Travelling long distances can actually become part of the experience. My point isn't that large open worlds are bad, it's that size shouldn't automatically be treated as a feature. A world should only be as big as it needs to be. For me, the best open worlds share a few qualities. They reward exploration, they contain memorable side content, they make travelling interesting, they have personality, and they respect the player's time. Whether the map is 5 square kilometres or 500 doesn't matter. What matters is how enjoyable it is to exist inside it. So, do games really need huge open worlds? Personally, I don't think so. I'd much rather play through a carefully designed city packed with meaningful activities than a gigantic map filled with repetitive content. Quality beats quantity almost every time. And that's one of the reasons I think games like Yakuza 0 will stand out today. But that's just my opinion. Do you prefer massive open worlds or smaller, denser maps? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.